Olivia. Okay, thank you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Cool. So, I don't know, just to kick off the interview to start,
hmm
um, maybe can you give us a brief like synopsis of what you do for the people that don't know who would be listening?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm a producer, beat maker, artist, performer. All those lovely things wrapped into one nice tight biscuit. So I mainly make beats. I've always been inspired by funk and jazz and like low key old school East Coast hip hop. So that's kind of the flavor that I bring. And I just started taking my show on the road this year, so I'm really excited to stop through Pittsburgh.
Nice.
Yeah, that's super exciting. How stoked are you to play on Wednesday?
I believe the kids say mega stoked.
That is correct.
It's probably a good approximation of how I'm feeling. Yeah, it's gonna be crazy. This tour is actually nuts for me because these rooms that we're playing, like, because I'm opening for the Floozies, and they're a pretty huge group, and so we're playing these like giant venues on this tour. So we're hitting the Rex Theater in Pittsburgh. That's the first show on this tour, and I just I'm freaking out. I'm so excited.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that sounds super exciting. You mentioned that you drew a lot of inspiration from hip hop. A lot of your beats, they tend to have a little bit more, I guess, like energy and kind of like electricity to them, but they kind of remind me a little bit of like Dilla and New Job Bass, just like a tiny bit. So do you like kind of like look at that sort of early 2000s or like late 90s sort of like transitioning into instrumental hip hop at all?
Oh yeah, I mean, I would Nujabes and Jay Dilla I would consider two of my primary influences in terms of people, that I look to for direction and inspiration, and also looking at their inspirations too, like who came before them that inspired them to do what they did. But those are two big names for sure in my sort of inspiration pantheon.
Okay, that makes sense. I have one like really specific question that kind of like hit me while I was in the shower.
Yeah. Oh, that's where they all come.
Yeah, that's like that's the meditation spot. One of my favorite song is "Look Both Ways," the collab you did, I think, with Flamingosis.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, that was like my anthem back like last year.
Oh, no way.
And the beginning percussion to that is like really, really reminiscent of. I mean, there's obviously like a lot of like kind of like jazz percussion happening in the beginning. But it almost kind of reminds me of like something maybe like Bonobo would do. Have you heard any Bonobo at all?
Have I heard Bonobo at all? Yes.
Oh, okay. I guess that's kind of
man. You are freaking. Honestly, you're nailing my influences. He was he was one of the first people that inspired me to get into what I do, and like has remained a big part of my sonic direction. I've seen him probably 4 times live. I got to open for him once when I didn't know. When I didn't know what I was doing, like 5 years ago. But it was a huge moment. Yeah, man, I love Bonobo.
All right.
Oh, that's awesome. Speaking of just your inspiration and like how you started and like where you're going, I was wondering like what big aspirations you have, like if you have any like big goals that you like want to tackle eventually.
Definitely. I'm currently just in the process of planning out 2019 right now, and have been for a little while. Sorry, also, if you hear some meows in the background, that would be my kitty cat, Scooter, just in case you're curious about those whiny noises. But, yeah, so for 2019, I'm super excited to sit down. I'm basically going to sit tight for the first, 3 months, spend winter writing a couple different projects. I have a few different ideas in mind for EPs, like solo Birocratic EPs, as well as collaborating with a bunch of friends and instrumentalists that I've made over the past year in New York City, which is where I live. So the goal for the majority of the year is really just to make a banging set of projects, roll them out the right way, and then go back on tour by the end of the year. And I'm just really excited to watch that all come together because I've got a bunch of ideas and I just can't wait to get them out.
Oh, awesome. With those collaborators, have you ever considered doing more visual stuff, like any music videos or any vocal inspirations as well?
Yes, it's definitely not something that, well, visuals for sure. I think my music inherently lends itself well to visuals, and because it's instrumental, it can be a very like experience-focused type of listening. So I definitely want to work with more visual artists this year, and I have a few homies around in Brooklyn that I want to work with for sure.
Oh, very cool.
And then as far as singing, like, definitely, although I don't have as crystallized of a vision in my mind as to how that would go, mostly because I'm just so used to making beats as Bureaucratic in just like complete isolation in my room. So in that sense, it would be, it's just an extension of, perhaps a different project. I would look at it differently if I were to start working with singers in a more direct way. But yeah, it's just like the pieces will fall into place. I'm positive because I'm surrounded by all this talent here.
Definitely.
Yeah, still figuring out the roadmap on that one for sure.
Yeah.
This is probably like a really basic question, but what does it kind of like look like when you sit down, you have like your DAW open or whatever, and you're just like, okay, here's, I'm going to work on like a particular thing. How does that, like, what does it kind of look like overall, like from the inception to kind of the process to like when you're like wrapping it up in a bow and kind of sending it out?
Well, it depends on a lot of things, but generally speaking, like we mentioned before, the shower is the meditation zone, and that's where all my good ideas happen. So I end up taking showers where the entire time I'm like beatboxing an idea to myself so I don't lose it while I'm like washing my body, and I'm like, okay, crap, I have to go like get a voice memo down while I'm still dripping wet before I lose this idea. So that's like the very beginning. That's the inception. Normally it just ends up being like in my mind, I just hear like 4-bar loops and grooves. Like that tends to be how I build my projects. And then from there, I'll literally just import that voice memo file into Ableton. I use Ableton 10 for producing. Yeah, and it helps me just kind of like work off of it because, it's a voice memo is going to be the simplest thing. And I think I have a tendency to overproduce and like try to cram as much, as many ideas as I can into a single musical moment. And I'm really trying to work myself away from that and like unlearn that. And I think that's just sort of like the musical maturity that I'm gaining as I continue doing this. And voice memos, I think, are like some of the best ways to start doing that, because you just have one thing that you can do that you can build off of. And I feel like you know immediately when it's having the impact that you want it to, and it's like, okay, this is good. I can move on. This is perfect. So that's basically how it starts. And then I go in pieces. So when I'm producing, I try to flesh out the horizontal arrangement. So like from start to finish, how I kind of want the dynamic arc of the song to go. I try to do that as early as possible, and then focus on the sounds later, or focus on mixing everything as late in the process as possible. Just make sure that the overall arc is saying what I want it to say. And then I just kind of do like passes where I just go from start to finish, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to make this like sound good, and then I'm going to like mix after that, and then I'm going to do the master. Just kind of trying to keep the holistic project in mind with every step, I find is the best way for me to create something that's golden.
Nice, thank you. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, definitely. That process is really cool. When did you start figuring out that this is what you wanted to do? Or just start that process in general?
Yeah, I guess in terms of like music production, it was a hobby for a while, and then I realized it was something that I could actually do as a career a few years ago while I was in school. So I went to school for music production, and it was kind of during then that the beats that I was making on the side started to take off in their own right. And so it was like, okay, I can actually like take this education that I'm getting and apply it, but also like work this stuff on the side and like make this a career. But I had been involved in music in some capacity. I started learning classical piano when I was 4. And so it's always been a part of my life in some way. And I've always known that I loved it and wanted to work with it. It just never like, it's hard out here to be a kid dreaming to do music and not have a specific idea of what you want to do,
Mm-hmm.
and actually like wind up with a career. And I was really lucky with where I was putting myself out there and when, and just like timing aligned itself, that my beats started making it onto these like really popular YouTube videos. And then I found an audience that was like eating up my music, and the rest is kind of history. I just kind of like took that opportunity and ran with it, and we're here now. So.
Yeah.
That's awesome. How do you I was wondering, how do you feel about your music being used in the way that it was like on BuzzFeed videos and stuff like that? Is that what you intended for it? And are you, I don't know, how do you feel about that?
I love it. I welcome it. I think it's amazing. I think the internet is designed so that sharing and complicating each other's art is possible and encouraged, and I think that's one of the most beautiful things. I think, you know, obviously there are instances where I'm like, wow, this video is really whack, or like this rapper is absolutely awful, and like it kind of hurts to hear, you know, them associating with my music. But, you know, I don't take it personally. I know that they're out here just trying to get better, or just trying to like put themselves out, and they just see an opportunity to, you know, use some free music, and so they'll do that, and there's nothing I can do about it, because once I make my music, it's out there and it belongs to the world. It doesn't belong to me anymore. So, you know, in my opinion, there's two perspectives you can take. You can either fight to like retain control over it, or you can accept the fact that the world is going to do what the world is going to do, and you have no control once it is out in the world.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I just tried to set up a career around openly sharing music. So that people feel welcomed and part of the process, and you know, able to engage with someone who's just making beats in their bedroom. Because who am I to prevent anyone, or to say that, oh, you're not good enough to use my tunes? Like, that mindset, I think, is unhealthy for the larger conversation about art in general. So
Right. I love that perspective that you
real.
take. Yeah, totally. I found you actually through one of those small YouTubers, PJ Lagori, and his stuff, and then I started using your music for videos that I make, and it just inspired more ideas, and it was fantastic. So I really appreciate that mindset that you have.
Yeah, of course. I'm glad to hear that. That's exactly what I love to hear, you know?
Did you make
What it's all about.
Tony's while you were still in school? Tony's Belated Breakfast?
You asked me if I made Tony's Belated Breakfast while I was in school? Sorry, you cut out for a second.
Yeah, sorry.
I think I made that, I want to say, at, I think, what was that, 2015?
Sorry, that's
I think it
kind
was
of like
right
a
after
really
I
specific
graduated.
question, but you just mentioned you started.
I'm racking my brain here. That was right after I graduated.
Okay.
Yeah.
With what you're working, because I kind of see like a kind of a general like change in. So there's, I think, there's like the Bob Ross that you worked on maybe like 2 years back, and then sort of like the stuff you did, I think, with like Flamingos. This was like maybe like last year, and I think that was like right next to Boys Bop. And then right now, I think you released like Zesty Surprise, and then before that Extra Fresh. And so like those three kind of like zones, I kind of see your sound kind of changing a little bit. So I'm just like, am I right in saying like Zesty Surprise was like a single, or is that like still a project you're still working on, or?
So yeah, Zesty Surprise, Extra Fresh were both singles. They weren't intended to be attached to any project.
Oh, okay.
They were, but what was cool about releasing those too was like, it was the first time I really sat down and I was like, all right, I'm going to develop like a really cool, like supplemental art for this, and like make.
Yeah, with like the designs and like the toothpaste.
Yeah, exactly. We had like sort of music videos that were like fake infomercials that were advertising these products that were like named Extra Fresh and Zesty Surprise, or mouthwash and toothpaste respectively, and just kind of like my dig at like, you know, hyper commercialism, and you know, at the same time just being really lighthearted about it. And yeah, I mean, in doing that, I've felt a strong desire to explore different avenues musically, and just kind of like discovered after playing a lot of live shows that making really chill music doesn't translate as well in a live setting, and I just have so much more fun when I'm able to make people dance, and I also have fun as an audience member when I go to shows where the encouragement is just like move your feet a bunch. So yeah, I just kind of took that perspective into the studio and was just like, you know what, I like want to make really fun, funky stuff and take all this experience that I have, but like I can stretch myself and I can challenge myself to make something that's gonna work live and still gonna be fun. And yeah, so it doesn't necessarily have the same sort of like thoughtful, there's like a melancholy, I think, that I really worked into my music, especially early on in my beat making career. And just because I've changed as a person, over time. I was 18 and starting college when I first was making beats, and now I'm 25 and like living life. And it's just, I've gone through a million changes since then. And so I think it's, it's just natural at this point to just kind of listen to those changes personally and, enact them in the music.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that like definitely like I felt like a huge, not huge, but like a definite like tonal shift, and so I was just wondering. I mean, it had to be like intentional, and so I was just kind of,
Oh yeah, definitely no accident. Definitely no accident.
Do you feel, since like you said, a lot of your earlier stuff has that kind of melancholy vibe, or at least like you did as you made it, you as a performer performing live, how do you feel that you come across? Do you feel like you have to put on this big performance as you play your music, or how does that, how are you as a performer?
Yeah, I mean, look, performing this music didn't necessarily come naturally. It was something that I feel like I've had to retrofit, because I was making this all like in dorm rooms, in the box. None of it was necessarily being played live, except maybe that, I'd program some drums live or something like that, but never wanted to do like a whole set of, a live performance of like finger drumming. That's not necessarily interesting to me. And so, over time, over playing like all these beats around the country a bunch, I've realized like the next project I want to do, I want to design a live show alongside the project itself, and have them be kind of part and parcel and, one very unified experience. Because this tour in particular is like, it's the first time I'm hitting a lot of cities in the U.S. And it's the first time that fans, which I'm grateful enough to have, like, they're going to be hearing these songs out loud for the first time. And these songs that I've made that stretch back like 5 years. So I have to honor that. I have to play those songs. And in kind of designing my set around that, it's just like, how can I make this as fun as possible for everybody to celebrate this music that I might not feel as connected to anymore, but like still is really important to those that are coming out to see me. So yeah, it's definitely been work to get it to like fit and sound right and feel right to me, for sure. So, but I mean, that's part of the fun. I mean, that, I love trying to figure out how this puzzle can, work itself out and fit together. And then once all the pieces convene, you just know. And so that's why I'm just pumped to go back out on the road.
Totally. Well, that sounds super exciting. I love the idea of combining visuals in your performance. We both had a strong reaction once you said that.
Yeah, that sounds like it would be really dope.
That's the goal, man. That is definitely the goal. Yeah, just a whole sensory experience. So,
you mentioned you studied music production in college. What's that like? Since most of my experience with like people in the music program tend to be like performance X instrument or something like that. So, what's music production like?
What's music production pedagogy like?
Yes, yeah, pedagogy, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, like, I had a really specific experience. Went to a very specific school. It's called the Clive Davis Institute. It's at NYU. It was like the only school I actually wanted to go to because they take a pretty holistic approach to like a music industry education. So you're going in there and you're like, yes, you're learning how to operate a studio. Yes, you're learning how to produce music electronically, but you're also learning the ins and outs of the business. And you're learning it from professors who like actually give a and they they live and work in the music industry every day in addition to their teaching jobs. So it was very relevant, and it just felt like a threat. Like, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to learn how to produce music, I'm going to do it in a sort of like business incubator style school where they like really focus on helping you develop a business plan by the time you graduate. So I can't speak for every program because a lot of music production programs are like very young and they're changing a lot. And I know that mine has changed a lot since I graduated. But you know, if there's someone out there who's listening and they're curious about going to school for music, especially music production, like not just a traditional conservatory degree, you know, I would just consider obviously the finances are a big part of it because I went to an expensive private school and ended up paying for it and still am paying for it and will continue to do so.
What's that like, Olivia?
How that goes. Sounds about right. But, you know, obviously the finances are important, and music is not a job that has any guarantee to return on your investment. Like, it just is how it is. Like, as much as you dream, you just got to be realistic about that. So either have a strong idea of what you're going to do and how you're going to make money, or, you know, just understand that music school is really about community, and it's really about building connections with people that are in the same boat as you and that understand what you're going through, and then being able to create a lasting community once you all leave school, both with your peers and colleagues and, you know, the fellow students, and with your professors and faculty. And just make sure that you're auditing, like, okay, is my faculty and the professors that I'm learning from, are they relevant? Like, are they going to be an asset to me if I make a good relationship with them throughout school? You know, are they going to be someone that I want to hit up later? And I'm fortunate to say that, yes, my professors were, in fact, incredibly helpful and willing to help out even as we transition to alumni. They really care about their students, and they have, you know, like I said, they have active jobs, so they're able to, like, meaningfully help out. So those are the big considerations that I would say, you know, go into a music production degree.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I know that you have to go soon, so can I hit you up with one last question before you go?
Yeah, of course.
So I just wanted to know, from your perspective, when people are listening to your music, what is the big takeaway that you want them to get from listening to your music? Do you have like one goal that you want people to get from when they listen?
Yes. I want them to smirk. I want them to smile and to feel like, you know, there are no words, but there is some truth being spoken here.
Oh, I love that. And
You
yeah,
know?
that's what it does for me. So
Yeah.
kudos.
Word. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Because it's a difficult target to hit, but, you know,
No, I think you do a great
job.
job.
I know when I feel it from other people's music, so I can only hope that other people are feeling it from mine.